Hi, it's Jason. This video is about guilt. Let's talk about guilt. Guilt is one of those things that you hear about all the time. I feel guilty about this. I feel guilty about that. I wish I had done this. I feel so guilty. And I hear it and I wonder, what does guilt really mean? Are you really guilty if you haven't done anything? You feel guilty because you didn't do something. So that didn't make any sense to me. So I spent a lot of time pondering this and other things, of course. In the Webster's Dictionary, which I have, as you can see, I'm pretty old school when it comes to that kind of stuff. Guilt is the fact of having committed a breach of conduct, or a state of one who has committed an offense consciously. Guilty is justly chargeable with or responsible for a grave breach of conduct. Okay, so by definition, you aren't really guilty of not doing something. So, and people say it all the time. And it's a very negative emotion. And truthfully, I believe that it came from our religion as we grew up, a lot of us. We were made to feel guilty. We've been told we were born with sin. So, okay, we feel guilty about that already, even though how did that work? We didn't commit it. We were just born with it. So we're already guilty of something. We're not worthy of His love is kind of a thing, so we always had to continually try to prove ourselves and get better and better. So these are things that we were taught. I'm not saying whether they're right or not, I don't know. It just doesn't feel right to me. If we don't do what others do, we should feel guilty. People tend to make us think that, okay, well, if you're not doing what I'm doing, you ought to feel bad. So that's kind of a control thing. It doesn't really, it doesn't make any sense at all to me. So kind of, I've written some notes here, so you'll see I keep looking down. If we don't feel bad when we hear of others' misfortunes, then we're bad. So if we don't feel bad, then we were bad. So I'm not really sure how that works exactly. Like I said, it still sure feels like a control system to me. If you don't feel bad, you are bad. If you feel better about yourself, or try to feel better about yourself, then you feel bad. And you can only be good if you feel bad for others or a situation, or you feel guilty because you didn't feel bad about a situation that you heard about. What? I mean, what? It doesn't make any sense to me. So I disagree completely with guilt. I think the term is misused, and people have just gotten in such a habit. It is actually kind of a way of feeling sorry for yourself. It's like, okay, well, I feel so guilty that I didn't do this. And it's kind of like saying, woe is me. Okay, well, I feel guilty because somebody else is less fortunate than I am, which you had nothing to do with, yet somehow you still feel guilty. But if you feel guilty, you convince yourself that you're being a good person because you feel guilty because their life is not as good as yours. Logically, it doesn't make any sense to me. So you cannot become good by feeling bad. It just doesn't work that way. You can't conquer hate by hating. So it's the same thing, So you cannot make someone feel good by feeling bad for them. So, for example, oh, I feel so bad that you broke your leg. Gosh, thank you. You know what? My leg is feeling a lot better now. No, it doesn't work that way. But still, people will beat themselves to death over it, and they'll use it as an excuse to feel bad. And then because they feel bad, they tend to start feeling sorry for themselves because, well, they aren't a good person. Now, we've been taught to inflict this upon ourselves, so therefore we don't really realize anymore, and so we just beat ourselves up all life long. Personally, I don't feel guilty. I live my life in such a manner that I'm not actually guilty of anything. Of course, I make mistakes. If I make a mistake, I will correct it. I will try to cover it as soon as I realize that it has happened. Sometimes you do something you're not even aware and it comes back to you later on. Well, as soon as that happens, no matter how much time has passed, whether it be a day, an hour, 10 years, it doesn't matter. As soon as I find out, I address it. It has to be done. And then it's over with. But I don't have to feel guilty. I may think, gosh, it is unfortunate that I didn't realize that. I wish I hadn't done that. But I'm not going to beat myself over guilt because of the fact that it was not intentional. It was done unconsciously. And so it has a lot to do with intent. If you spend more time thinking about what your intent was when these things occurred, there's no reason for you to feel guilty about it. My intentions were good. Turns out it didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. That person didn't understand the way I meant it, or it didn't come out sounding right, or perhaps I just didn't know all the circumstances before I made a comment, or whatever it is that comes about. But my intentions were still good. And once I found out, I took care of it as much as I could. I contacted the person, or I did whatever I could to rectify it. In some cases you can't, but all you have to do at least just do what you can to say that was not my intention. I apologize if it came out that way, or whatever the case may be. I know for a fact I'm not guilty for anyone starving in another country. I'm not guilty because of the fact that I did have lunch today. Now, I think we should be concerned about those things, but I shouldn't carry the burden of guilt because of it. On the other hand, I can't help anyone if all I do is beat myself up with negativity all day. I have to stay up, and it's not just for that purpose. It just doesn't make sense that we turn ourselves into victims of our own guilt, and therefore we accomplish much less. The more time I spend feeling guilty, the less time I have to either rectify it, if it has any substance at all, or to actually do something good. You know, we only have so much time during the day, during our lives. If we spend half of it feeling guilty about things we're not even guilty for, well, we've done nothing. We've accomplished nothing. So I find it to not only be worthless, I don't even believe it's an emotion, but we'll call it that now. I believe it not only to be worthless, I believe it to be extremely harmful. And like I said, I think it falls into the category of self-pity. We have a tendency to use that guilt to feel sorry for ourselves because we aren't a good person. Now, even if that were the case, that we weren't a good person, there is a solution to that problem, and that's try to become a good person. So feeling bad because you don't think you're a good person is very fixable if you are actually correct. So let's see. That's my take on guilt. I tend to ramble. I like to ramble. That's what my videos are about. I don't know if anyone's going to listen to them, but I feel much better for getting it out. And I'll probably hit some more topics that are probably a little sensitive to people emotionally, but in my opinion, there's some things that we really need to get over and we need to discard if we all want to move forward and become better. If we want to become better people, there are some things we need to stop doing. And one of them is feeling guilty when we're not actually guilty. So if you're guilty of a crime, that makes sense. You're found guilty, you were guilty, you committed it, okay. But feeling guilty for something you didn't do, or feeling guilty for something that you have absolutely no control over, and you only feel guilty because it didn't happen to you, it doesn't make any sense. You have to start thinking about these things rationally and logically. So anyway, try not to feel guilty. If you think my video was stupid, well, you might be right, so you don't have to feel guilty about that either, okay? So thank you for listening, and we'll see you again soon.